Good evening. Welcome to IDAGIO Live. We arrived today to the 9th Symphony of Gustav Mahler. Now, what is this thing about the number 9? Of course, composers can be superstitious too, like many of us. And they are. Mahler definitely was, and he had a feeling that he shouldn't compose the 9th Symphony because 9 is dangerous. Schubert died after composing 9 symphonies, then Bruckner died after 9, Beethoven finished his 9th symphony and died. So Mahler had this feeling that 9 is dangerous. And yes, this became his last completed symphony. It wasn't the plan. He did start the 10th, so he wanted to continue, and this feeling and this rumor or reputation what this 9th symphony has, that it's Mahler's music about dying and death in general, it feels like that. I can fully understand it, but I don't think that it was Mahler's plan. Actually, despite tragedies that he did have the fatal illness, and his 4-year-old daughter died. He had tragedies in his life, but he also had plans. He wanted to continue, finally be liberated of the work of the opera house, go to New York, start a completely new life with the opera and the orchestra there, and compose the 10th symphony. However, if we listen to it, there is something fatal and absolutely close to death about this symphony. It was Leonard Bernstein again who made this remark about the first few notes, that they are heartbeats. Heartbeats which are not regular. Mahler did have some kind of a heart disease. I don't know what his heartbeat was like, but he starts this symphony with this rhythm. And I can hear that it's an arrhythmical, irregular beat. And it's strange that it's only one instrument, the cello group, then a muted horn answers it. A harp first, so it's actually a combination. The cellos play, horn answers on the same note, cellos, horn, now a harp alone, now another horn, still muted. So this symphony starts from nowhere, from this irregular beat, and there is not much happening. But within seconds, there is something magic. And this is absolutely lovely, how he, out of these few notes which don't have any musical meaning at all, we don't know where we are, how does he start? So he has this people hear a farewell motif, goodbye, leb wohl in German, You can interpret all kinds of things in it. I've seen once a score of Wilhelm Mengelberg. Mengelberg was a close friend and a colleague of Mahler, and they talked a lot, and Mengelberg had the habit of writing many things in his score. Now, he has here it's in German, Todesglocken, the death bells. Played by the harp. Farewell, goodbye, death bells. A lot of people have associations with these first few notes. What I hear in it is actually somehow not sad. You can say that it's tragic and it has a contact with death or dying or farewell, but it's in a major key. It's not in a minor key. It's not a, but it's, and it leads to this harmony, which is not necessarily a tragic harmony, but the whole context is still heartbreaking. This and out of these two notes, gradually the music develops. I would say that yes, it is about dying, it's about end, it's about farewell, but what I really feel is that Bruno Walter was the person who found the key, the two words which describe it the best. It's a peaceful farewell. There is something harmonious and almost smiling about this incredible sadness, which of course radiates always from Mahler's slow music, and this is the start of the first movement. Then it becomes passionate, very rich, and yes, these arrhythmical heartbeats, they come back with full like incredible, dominating tragedy. But it's a huge, wonderful, rich movement. Many musicians thought, for example, Alban Berg, that this was the greatest symphony movement ever composed. After the first movement, we have some kind of a contrast. Mahler usually writes the Austrian grotesque, strange scherzos. In this case, he actually chooses a dance form which is three different dances alternating, a little slower, a little faster, and a much slower one. So we abruptly go from one dance to the other, and at the beginning it says it should actually sound teppish, it should sound stupid and rough and kind of ordinary. Does it is this kind of I can see a lot of beer drinking Austrians who have a kind of primitive party together, but that's what he wants. He wants the music to be very Austrian and very rough, vulgar. And on the other hand, of course, it has a special beauty, like there are these ambiguous expressions in Mahler's music. Then it will become like all dance music, sometimes whirling with a much faster speed, and takes us to all kinds of dances. And this is the second movement. And the third one is also very grotesque. It actually even says it's a burlesque. It's a burlesque rondo burlesque. Rondo is the musical form, and it's very wild and energetic, and incredibly well written. It's actually wonderful to listen to a complicated burlesque music. Why did he do that in the middle of a symphony which is about farewell and about this last contact to our universe? I think he wanted to have very strong contrasts. He wanted the first movement and the last movement which are expressing his real farewell feeling, and in the middle a contrast to make the effect, what it makes to us, to the listener, even stronger. So, and that is how we arrive to the final movement of Mahler's last finished symphony. And again, like many times earlier, he chooses to end the symphony with a slow movement. Do you remember the other slow movements we had in this survey of Mahler's symphonies? There is something interesting that most of them are in a major key, and the major key is not supposed to be tragic in the basic rules of music. In Mahler's case, it's always about some kind of eternal love, like clearly in the Third Symphony, or something divine, like in the Fourth Symphony. Major. Never really, I don't think he wants to express a kind of depressed sadness, never. Can we recall it a little bit? Do you remember the Third Symphony? This was about what love tells me. It's beautiful, flowing, but I wouldn't call it tragic. Now, which one did we have? Fourth Symphony. In this heartbreakingly beautiful music, but again I wouldn't think it's tragic. Then, for example, the Adagietto, where there's even a discussion, is it sad or is it a love letter? You remember? Sixth Symphony. Actually, that's the tragic symphony. But this movement. It flows also. Somehow these beautiful slow movements of Mahler, I wouldn't call them sad. There is something different. There is something which hurts, very painful, but always in a major key. And now we arrive to this Ninth Symphony, the final movement. Now this is complicated. do hear something deeper in this than the other slow movements, something which some people call, and they are right, I think, a hymn to death. How does he start this? We are in D flat major. This is our tonic, our main harmony. He wants to have an introduction before this, so, but he could do it simpler, just leading there, or in any other way. This is where we want to end. This is very dissonant note. And finally, we know where we are. To choose such a complicated introduction to a very simple hymn, before this, it's a very interesting idea. It's almost like a painful, complicated journey to a final arrival, which is tragic, sad, but harmonious. Listen to it again. All the violins play with full passion. Holding this note, little softer arrival. This in all kinds of harmonies, actually a very complicated movement, using this ti, di, do, 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 this motif which appears in a repetitive way, a little bit like in Bach's music, but it comes in once here and once there, you know. Suddenly a soft single note and a very lonely bassoon starts alone. And it breaks out, and then from here it will develop. Is this music? It is a heartbreaking outpouring of Mahler's love and soul and hanging on to the world and saying goodbye to it in a peaceful way. It continues the Lied von der Erde, the Song of the Earth, which was also about the end. Do you remember there we had this kind of feeling that we get more and more distant from the earth, and actually what he sings about is the beauty of our planet, the beauty of the earth itself. And it continues on this, but I would say that the Ninth Symphony is a little more introvert. It's about the feeling of it. It's less what it means or what it is for all of us philosophically, what it means to fly away from the earth, but it's the feeling and somehow the awareness of his feeling to the universe. The same music which starts the symphony, starts the last movement, gets a beautiful slow hymnical version, and then at the end it gets softer and softer, and it leads us to the final few minutes of this symphony, which are very famous because everybody is puzzled by this. What is it? The music breaks down, we only hear fragments of it, and we hear this territory between music and silence, between music and nothing, between life and death. So there are certain elements of the music there which we hear with a fading awareness. And I think what Mahler wanted to compose is his own fading awareness of the beauty of the earth. This how he just gets a last little glimpse of it, a few notes here, a few notes there, but everything is completely peaceful and harmonious. This last movement is the culmination of Mahler's art, the most beautiful, heartbreaking. People hold their breath. Usually when this symphony is finished and everybody is hanging on to these few single notes what the two violin groups play, extremely softly, hardly audible, fragmentic, it finishes with this last harmony. There is usually a long silence because the silence is part of this music-silence duality, and everybody feels deeply touched because it's one of the greatest musical experiences you can have. So I highly urge you to listen to this symphony. If you see the link down there, you can click on it and you can hear my recording of this wonderful masterwork. But please, whenever you can, go to concerts and listen to it. I want to see if you had questions about Mahler's final finished symphony. And I want to stress again that it wasn't his plan. He wanted to continue with a new one, but he couldn't finish it. Here are the questions. Somebody is just saying, thanks Iván Fischer, IDAGIO, for the walkthrough. The insights were very interesting. I'm very happy. Thank you very much. I'm happy you followed it. Another thanking message. I wonder, people don't seem to have questions about the last symphony. I would be very, very happy to answer, but today no questions. So this was the end of the journey. I want to ask you that you forgive me. I don't think I should speak about the 10th symphony because it's not finished. We don't know it. We only know bits of it, but I don't know what to say. I would love to hear the rest which Mahler had in mind, but at least we have 9 fantastic symphonies and the Lied von der Erde, which I think are works without which the world would be a much poorer place. Thank you for listening to IDAGIO Live. I hope to see you soon and talk about something else.